Item number 25. What must be present for the spores to germinate? Letter A. Moist soil. B. Dry soil. C. Rocky places. D. Wind. The answer is letter A. For the germination to occur, the environmental conditions must be favorable in order to support growing plants, and it includes the soil conditions, that it must be moist and warm. Item number 26. In which part of a fern plant are the clusters of spores found? Letter A. Roots. B. Under surface of fronds. C. Stem. D. Flower. The answer is letter B. Under surface of frond. It is because clusters of spores are called sporangium, which contain spores and are usually found on the underside of the blade or frond, or katong rough sa ilalom sa leaves sa fern. Item number 27. What distributes pollen grains from male cones to female cones among pines? Letter A. Wind. B. Animals. C. Water. D. Humans. The answer is letter A. Wind. In the spring, large amounts of yellow pollen are released or carried by the wind, and of those lands on the female cone.
Hello everyone, I am tasked to answer numbers 28 to 30 of the Let Reviewer of Biology. So I'll start with number 28. How are pollen grains from male flower transferred to the female flower? There are 4 choices of this. Letter A, through stamen. B, through air. C, through water. D, through capsule. So my answer for this is letter C, through waters, because in order for pollen grains to move from male pollen grains to the female pollen grains, they need vectors, and vectors include wind, air. So water is one of the choices, so the answer is water. Letter A is wrong. Stamen. It is because stamen is just a pollen producing reproductive organ of the flower, so this has nothing to do with the transportation of the pollen grain of the male pollen grains to the female pollen grains. Letter B is also wrong. Through air. It is because air is different from wind, since wind is a moving factor. The air is just a pressure in the surrounding. So letter D is also wrong. Through capsule, because when you say capsule in botany, it is a type of simple, dry, and though rarely fleshed fruits produced by many species of angiosperm, or the flowering plants. So these capsules opens only when they are ripe. Number 29. Which part of the fern plant can be eaten by humans? The answer for this is letter C. So, what are the examples of ferns? Example is pako. So, when we eat pako, unsa may kakauno nato pag kakaon ta og pako? Letter A, root. Letter B, seeds. Letter C, young fronds. D, spores. So, the answer for this is letter C, young fronds. When I say young fronds, this is the leafy part of the fern. So, ngano wrong ang letter A, root? It is because when we are eating pako, we are not eating the root. These are only the ones nga nasa ilalom to hold them, but we are not eating that one. Letter B, seeds. Also, we are not eating the seeds of the ferns. No. And letter D, spores. Of course, dili na to nagakaunon ang spores sa ferns, because spores are the ones used for the reproduction of the ferns. Number 30. Mosses are good forest ground cover. This could be due to letter A, They reproduce sexually and asexually. Letter B, lack of conducting tissues. Letter C, low-growing plants in moist places. Letter D, produce many spores that grow fast. So my answer for this is also letter C. They are low-growing plants in a moist places. So most of the or all of the mosses actually grow near water or in a place that has moisture because they absorb moisture and they serve as a sponge to avoid soil erosion. So, why is A wrong? They reproduce sexually and asexually. Yes, they reproduce sexually and asexually. When we say sexually, it means that mosses reproduce through producing sperms, no, like humans. And when we say asexually, they reproduce through vegetation. But their reproduction has nothing to do with the mosses being good as cover in the forest ground. B is also wrong. Lack of conducting tissues because in reality mosses are very good conductors of water. In fact, they avoid or um, they avoid soil erosion. So letter D, produce many spores that grow fast. They do, but that has nothing to do with mosses being a good forest ground cover. So the answer is letter C.
Number 31. Which of the following enables an adult frog to live both land and water? Letter A. It has dry, scaly skin. Letter B. It can hop and has 4 webbed feet. Letter C. It can catch food like insects. Letter D. It can create loud sound in water to attract food. So our answer is letter B. It can hop and has 4 webbed feet because a frog is an amphibian that can live both on land and in water. Instead of drinking water, frogs soak the moisture into their body through their skin. Frogs breathe through their nostrils while also absorbing about half the air they need through their skin. And also, frogs use their sticky muscular tongue to catch and swallow food. Number 32. What is common among tilapia, milkfish, and shark? Letter A. Gills for breathing. Letter B. Swimmerets for movement. Letter C. Slimy skin without scales. And letter D. Slender, big bodies. So our answer is letter B. Swimmerets for movement because swimmerets have 3 functions. They help the crayfish swim, they move water over the gills for respiration, and on the female, they hold the larva. So number 33, the least economically important item we derive from goat is blank. Letter A, fur for clothing. Letter B, milk for human babies. Letter C, meat for anyone. Letter D, horn for decoration. So our answer is letter A, fur for clothing. It is the least economically important product derived from a goat because goats do have fur, not like sheep that has wool, and most clothing used during winter are wools that are present from sheep.
Item number 74. Crocodiles are reared in some parts of Palawan. What important product is derived from this animal? Letter A. Blood for food. B. Scaly skin for bags and shoes. C. Entrails for medicine. D. Stuffed or embalmed animal for display. My answer for this is letter B. Scaly skin for bags and shoes. Because the production of bags and other luxury items such as shoes, belts, wallets, and upholstery that is made out from the skin of the crocodile is important and expensive because of its beautiful pattern, a long-lasting, and it is soft, especially in the belly part of the crocodile. The other choices were blood for food. The blood of the crocodile isn't edible and it could be a medicine, but It should be dried up and put in a capsule before taking it. Letter C. Entrails for medicine. Its internal organs or intestines cannot be made as a medicine, and the stuff or embalming of the animal for display isn't that important or expensive. Number 75. If you were to make an aquarium with water from a pond, which one will you not put into the setup? Letter A. Small water lily. Letter B. Starfish. Letter C. Snail from rice paddy. Letter D. Guppies. My answer for this is letter B, which is starfish, because the sea stars, or commonly known as starfish, can only live in salt water, and it takes up to 30 seconds to 5 minutes out of the water is already a death threat to them. And the other choices, which is water lily, snail from rice paddy, and guppies, can live in a water from a pond. Number 76. How is pollen from male cones transferred to the female cones? Letter A. Through the stamen. Letter B. Through water. Letter C. Through air. Letter D. Through the capsule. My answer for this is letter C, which is through air, because upon the maturity of the male gametophyte, or pollen, is released from the male cones and is carried by the wind to land on female cones. And the female cones sits lower than the male tree to take advantage of the downward fall of the pollen. And the other choices, such as the letter A, through the stamen, and the stamen could only be seen in flowers, and it cannot be transferred through water and through the capsule.
So here we go, classmates. So I'm going to rationalize the part of chemistry, the numbers 37 to 40, which my group mates assigned to me. So without further ado, I'm going to start my rationalization. So which part of some fern plant species could be eaten by humans? A. Roots. B. Young ferns. C. Seeds. Or D. Spores. So the right answer here is the young ferns or young fronds, or we called it also a fiddle heads, because it has an antioxidant activity, and it is also a source of omega-3 and omega-6 for fatty acids. And there are a lot of varieties in young ferns, that this is also they've shown also for a carcinogenic. So why? So obviously we cannot eat roots and seeds. Some seeds are we cannot also eat the seeds because it's not appropriate to eat it. And the spores is just a part of ferns, which is the circles. If you have noticed it, it's a part of the leaf. It's under the leaf where, when it gets mature, it turns out to be a young fronds or a young ferns. So the right answer there is a young ferns, letter B. So let's move on to number 38. So mosses are good forest ground cover. This could be due to A. Reproduction by sex cells. B. Low growing plants in moist places. C. Lack of conducting tissues. Or letter D. Produce many spores that grows fast. So the right answer here is letter D. It produces many spores that grow fast because mosses produce uses only spores, not also a seed, and mosses don't have flowers. Um, moss gametophytes have stems, though these mosses have stems, but they don't have flower and seeds. They don't use that. They only use spores um, to multiply, and this is also support as the branch and upright or prostate um, for growing. So why not A, B, and C is the answer. So reproduction by sex cells. Normally, mosses don't have reproductive cells, reproductive organs. I mean, um, so they're not also low growing plants in moist places because um, they are prone to moist places. They grow fast in moist places. That's why this is a good cover in the forest ground. And lack of conducting tissues. They do not lack in conducting tissues because, as I've said a while ago, um, mosses are multiplied by spores. So they don't use the seed. They don't have flower also. So letter D is the answer. So 39. Why are spores produced in leaves or top of the stalk rather than at the ground? So unlike other land plantations, um, um, spores only produce in leaves, mm, because spores are carried away from the sporophyte that produces them. So the right answer here is letter A, is to allow wind to disperse, because the wind is carried the spores to make them into matured and um, let it grow and can be eaten to humans. It's not for dissemination by animals because animals, um, there are a lot of types of animals. There can be carnivore, omnivore, and herbivore. But usually, um, animals only eat grasses and not ferns. Um, dissemination for by water. It couldn't be disseminated by water because um, it, it can be it can be there's a part of production in ferns that includes water, but not totally that the water will disseminate the spores in the plants or in the leaves. And lastly, number 40, which plant will you choose to protect the water source near your place? So A, herbs, B, grasses, C, trees, or D, beans. The right answer here is trees, because through the use of rainwater and also the groundwater, trees help prevent water that what that helps to prevent the water tables from rising by balancing the recharge and discharges. So why not herbs, grasses, and bean? So as we all know that herbs cannot protect the water source because of their tiny roots. It couldn't prevent the current of the water. So the herbs cannot really impede or cannot protect the water the water source near in your place. So why not grasses also and beans? Both of them are land plantation, so they can live longer if they absorb too much water, or the roots will be rot. will get rotten. Yes, and that's it. That's my rationalization for chemistry, numbers 37 to 40. I hope you learned something from me.
Item number 65. The continental drift theory can be explained as letter A, the movement of the Earth's tectonic plates, letter B, the gradual widening of the oceans, letter C, the movement of the large land masses on the crust, letter D, the gradual sinking of continents. The answer is letter C. Continental landmasses were drifting across the Earth, sometimes flowing through oceans and into each other. Item number 66. When an earthquake occurs, the actual point where an earthquake originates is called the A. Epicenter, B. Focused, C. Fault line, D. Fissures. The answer is letter A. Epicenter. Epicenter is the point on the Earth's surface above the focus, the point where an earthquake or an underground explosion originates. Item number 67. A fountain of hot water ejected out of the ground at regular intervals is called A. Mud spring, B. Hot spring, C. Geyser, D. Vent. The answer is letter C. Geyser is a hot spring in which water intermittently boils, sending a tall column of water steam into the air.
So hello everyone. Today I'd be rationalizing to you items 68 and 70 of the let-like questions in Earth and Space. So I'll start with number 68. Number 68. When wind, water, or activity of animals carries soil from one place to another, this process is known as blank. Letter A, weathering. Letter B, erosion. Letter C, sedimentation. Or letter D, decantation. So my answer for this is letter B, erosion. Because when we say erosion, this is when earthen materials are carried away or worn away or transferred away by natural forces like wind, water, activities of animals. So letter B is the answer. Why is weathering wrong? It is because they have the same process. It breaks down or dissolves a material, but then there is no movement involved in the process. No? Letter C is also wrong, sedimentation. Why? It is because when we say sedimentation, this is a separation of the solid material from the liquid material. For example, when you put together styrofoam and water. So basically, styrofoam will float and water will remain underneath. Letter D is also wrong, decantation, because when we say decantation, this is the separation of two immiscible liquid. When we say immiscible, when you mix them together, they will not form a homogeneous mixture. For example, oil and water. So let's proceed to number 69. Which of the following is not an agent of weathering? So there are four choices. Letter A, flowing of water. Letter B, transport of animals. Letter C, changing air temperature. And letter D, movement of the wind. So before I go to the answer of this question, let me um, um, speak to you the different agents of weathering. Um, the agents of weathering are water, ice, acid, salts, plants, animals, and changes in temperature. And the wind is not a part of it. So the answer for this is letter D, movement of the wind. Because flowing water, it is one of the agents of weathering. The transport of animals, it is also the part of agents of weathering. And letter C, changing of air temperature, the same. Now let's proceed to number 70. From November to February, the Dominant monsoon in the country is the blank. There are 4 choices: A. Northwest, B. Southwest, C. Northeast, and D. Southeast. Basically, there are 2 monsoons in the country. We only have northeast or the Amihan and the southwest, which is the Habagat. So, if you break it down, letter A and letter D is already wrong. So the choices are between letter B and letter C. Letter B, Southwest Habagat, happens on July to September, and the Northeast happens on November to February. So the answer for this is letter C.
Number 71. Which statement describes both weather and climate? Letter A. The ceremony was called off because of the weather. Letter B. I went to the rainforest. Letter C. The skies were overcast today. Letter D. It is warm and sunny in our province. So let's take a look at letter A. The ceremony was called off because of the weather. So only weather is observed. Letter B, I went to the rainforest. So as we all know, rainforest is a kind of forest. Letter C, the skies were overcast today. When we see overcast, covered with clouds, a lot of clouds. And letter D, it is warm and sunny in our province. So probably the answer is letter D because it is warm and sunny in our province. So warm is the weather and sunny is the climate. So the climate suggests that the condition of the air in a short time period, whereas the climate signifies ordinary weather of a particular area over a span of several decades. The weather may change in a couple of minutes, while weather can take long time to alter. So number 72, the primary cause for the continuous cycling of water is the blank. So letter A, wind, letter B, soil, letter C, sun, letter D, earth's rotation. So my answer is letter C because the water cycle is driven by the sun's energy. Again, sun's energy. So the sun warms the ocean surface and other surfaces of water, causing liquid water to evaporate. And that's the beginning of the water cycle. Number 73. Factors that work together to cause changes in atmospheric conditions includes air pressure, temperature, wind direction, and blank. Letter A, amount of precipitation. Letter B, cloud cover. Letter C, relative humidity. And letter D, all of the above. So let's look for the meaning for atmospheric condition. So atmospheric condition comprises the state of the atmosphere in terms of temperature, wind, clouds, and the amount of precipitation. So the above mentioned factors affects the atmospheric condition, for it is interconnected with each other. So our answer is letter D, all of the above.
Number 74. All the following occur in troposphere except letter A, storms, letter B, tornadoes, letter C, cloud formations, letter D, aurora. My answer for this is letter D, which is aurora, because troposphere is the layer of the atmosphere where all the weather occurs, such as storms, tornadoes, or hurricane, because almost all of the water vapor is located in here. And aurora is an exception to it because it belongs in the thermosphere. And the sequence of the 5-layer of the atmosphere starts from the troposphere, next is stratosphere, the mesosphere, thermosphere, and the last one is exosphere. Number 75. Rocks formed by cooling of lava are classified as letter A, igneous, letter B, metamorphic, letter C, sedimentary, letter D, porous. My answer for this is letter A, which is igneous, because intrusive igneous rock are formed from magma that cools and solidifies within the crust of the planet and forms fine-grained rocks like basalt, a dark-colored igneous rock. Letter B, which is metamorphic, is not the answer because it is a rock which exposed with high heat or pressure and usually when plate tectonics meet. Letter C, sedimentary, is not also the answer because it is sediments that is compacted with high pressure. And letter D, which is porous, is not also the answer because it consists of several crystals and its example for it is the dolomite. Number 76. All the statements about water are true except letter A. It can rise faster in thick tubes than in thin tubes. Letter B. It can exist in three phases. Letter C. It exhibits surface tension. Letter D. It expands when frozen. My answer for this is letter A, which it has a false statement about water, which it can rise faster in thick tubes than in thin tubes, because the true statement about water is a thinner tube has less surface area, and so the water molecules have less space to fill, and that's why they rise higher in a thin tube than in a thicker tube. And the other choices like letter B, it can exist in three phases. Yes, it is a true statement about water because it could be solid, liquid, and gas. And letter C, it exhibits surface tension. Yes, it is also true. Is also a true statement about water because water is known to have a high surface tension. And letter D, which it expands when frozen. Yes, it is also a true statement about water because when it freezes, it expands by 9%.
So, hello everyone and classmates. I'm going to rationalize the given sets of items together with my group mates. So, without further ado, let's get started. And this is the part of Earth and Science. So, in the number 77, the question is an unknown mineral was found to be lustrous, ductile, and resistant to scratching. Most probably, the mineral is, and the choices are gemstone, siliceous, metallic, and non-metallic. So the correct answer there is metallic because um, metallic mineral are contains of one or more minerals. They are also malleable and ductile in nature, so they can be easily pounded into thin sheets. And this and metallic mineral also can be used or they used as a gem in jewelries. So why not gemstone or siliceous or non-metallic aren't the answers? It's because a gemstone is only a piece of mineral crystal, like as what we've seen, like a shiny thing, and that is used to make jewelry also. It's the same thing with metallic or another adornments. So rarity is one is also a one characteristic of the gemstone. So siliceous is a kind of sedimentary rock. Um, it has a silica secreting organisms such as rad- radiolarians, diatoms, or sponges. So the non-metallic, as we all know, that it is brittle when it is solid, and usually non-metallic minerals is They are usually poor in thermal conductivity and electrical conductivity because they do not contain any metal substances in the mineral. So, so the right answer there is metallic. So let's proceed to the number 78. Um, the question there is the moon's revolution is the cause of the following phenomena except the choices there is A. Changing tides, the changing of eclipse, the changing of seasons, and the changing of the different phases of the moon. So, the right answer there is the changing of tides, because the changing of tides is the result when the moon is revolving, which is the moon has a major influence of the um, Earth's Earth's tide, but Sun also has the generate considerable tidal forces. So, why B, C, and D uh, are are one of the phenomena of moon's revolution? It's because when we all know that when the moon revolving, every month we have 12 phases of moons. So every month we are experiencing different kind of eclipse, and um, the different phases of the moon is what we experience monthly, and then the eclipse is just a rare thing for us. And the letter B, the changes of seasons or weather, it's because this is um, this is the result when the sun is considerable as tidal waves because um, it generates the humidity of um, the earth, the earth's surfaces, and of course the revolution of um, the moon. So the right answer there is the changing of tides. So let's proceed to number 79. Um, which of the following be found on the surface of the earth? So the choices there is meteoroid, asteroid, um, meet, meteors, and meteorites. So the right answer there is letter D, meteorites, because it is usually a part of meteoroids or asteroid, which is survive the passage through the atmosphere as a meteor to impact to the surface of the earth. Um, Meteoroid is only a small rocky body in the outer space. It's usually smaller than the asteroids. So the asteroid is only a minor planet, especially it can be found in the inner of the solar system. Um, we call those larger asteroid as planetoids. Okay, so meteors, this is very common, and we call this as shooting stars, um, because it only has a piece of dust and debris from the space that burned up in the Earth's atmosphere. So usually it creates a bright streaks across the night sky. So the letter D is the right answer there. So meteorites. So and lastly, 80. So a carbon footprint is the what? So the right answer there is letter C. Um, the greenhouse gases you emit every day. So it's not a carbon paper you use. It's not also all none of the above. It's not also the space you occupy, because a carbon footprint is is that this is this is the following activity that you keep on doing as a lifestyle, and it supports your um, everyday living. The carbon paper you use is also a process. Is only a process of from machineries, and the the space you occupy is not applicable because it's just a space, and there's no carbon that is going around. So that's it. That's the rationalize from the numbers that was assigned to me. It's 77 to 80 in the earth and space. So that would be all. Thank you.